My kids were 3, 4, 6, and 9 when I, was paralyzed. And that, that, that article that it was actually an essay I had sent around. This is in 1997 before we even had blogs or anything like that. I sent an email and the email got forwarded. And then somebody in my church was an editor at the Baltimore Sun. And so he helped me and said, yeah, you've got something here. And then it became published, and that led to another column. But it was about writing about my feelings, like what it was like to try to engage with a 3-year-old from the wheelchair. And of all things, we played soccer. I was the goalie going back and forth in the garage, and he had a great time, and I did too. And it's like, yes, I can still be a mom in the darn wheelchair. But that writing the thoughts down helped settle them for me. And that's still a constant today.
Welcome to the Persistence U podcast with Lisbeth. That's you as in university, but we're really much more of a community here. Lisbeth Meredith is an author, speaker, and online teacher. Each week, she'll be delivering amazing stories from survivors and strivers, all threaded together with a dose of persistence. We're so glad you're listening.
Sisters and brothers, so glad that you're here this week. I am excited to have Rebecca Galli with us on Persistence U today. She and I were authors together at She Writes Press, which is where my first book, it's the publisher my first book was launched with. And now She Writes Press is distributing using Simon & Schuster. So that is new. If you've noticed that Pieces of Me, Rescuing My Kidnapped Daughters is hard to find on Amazon at the moment, it's because we're making a beautiful transition. We'll be back on all the online retailers soon and independent bookstores as well. It could be ordered through, but Simon & Schuster is now from here forward, is the distributor. So Rebecca and I met a couple of years ago. We didn't meet. We met via email in a Facebook group. And so today was the first time we connected. This is the third time I've tried to record this introduction. Boo-hoo. I was in a great mood when I started, but now it keeps taking me so long. Anyway, I've been 60 years old for a week now. This date is August I believe it is the 19th. And I will tell you that so far this decade, as near as I can see, is awesome. I just got back from a freelance writing gig that was super immersive. It was a travel writing gig. And let me tell you, that was a joy. I just want to say thank you so much to Hannah Hammond at Chattanooga Tourism Company and to all the staff there that was so lovely, and our driver, Abigail, and Matador Magazine for making this happen. It's online, and they are a travel magazine and sell travel packages and other stuff. So really excited at this late date in life. Writing could not necessarily pay the bills as much as provide new adventures. Some travel writing does pay some bills. This one, they pay for amazing excursions that selected writers can write about for the magazine. Oh my goodness, from hang gliding to kayaking, from riding around the scenic city on bicycles to every amazing restaurant you could imagine. All of it was covered, and it was fun to meet journalists from around the world. Just 3 others, but oh my goodness, around the United States this time, I should say. Matador is international, but what fabulous talent I got to meet. And who knew that at the age of 60, you could find something different to want to explore more. I'm dying to go to some places, and some I'll happily pay for, but if I could write about some and just go, yes, please, I'm so excited. So that was an amazing joy. One more bit of gratitude before I turn it over to Rebecca Galli is I just finished Tilka Faces the Odds, One Man at a Time, with a couple of beta reads. And I want to thank Monica, who is an amazing person that I worked with in Alaska. And she did some beta reading and suggested edits, as well as my friend Suzanne Millard, Oh my goodness, so grateful. And then Barbara Voss from Women Writers, Women's Books. That's a fabulous Facebook group for women writers. And I thank her for all the support over the years, the friendship, and the endorsement. I'm really excited about this very long awaited book for me, anyway. And it's not for everyone. This is not a memoir. So it's a novel. Think Bridget Jones meets Elizabeth Gilbert. And it's set in Alaska and a little bit in Tennessee. And I so adore that I'm wrapping it up next, working on with the cover artist, buying ISBNs, all the things. I will I will be letting my email list know and letting you know when it's available for sale, which would be coming up in the next, I'd say 6 weeks. And then I will start recording as I can the audiobook portion, and we'll do a relaunch then. This has been a work of my heart, and I am proud of it. I am. I think it has great legs, and I think it gives a message of hope and resilience, and it's fun. And if you've written about tragedy the way that I have in pieces of me rescuing my kidnapped daughters, it's nice sometimes to write about some other things. Let's say like travel, and let's say like, fun, humor, and even dating. So this will be an enjoyable book. Hope you like it if you are prone to liking such things. Have a great week. Enjoy Rebecca Galli. She has so much to offer and a wonderful perspective, and just has carved out a very interesting life for herself after some massive setbacks that hit her, not all at once, but I'm going to say a number of them hit very close at the same time in her life. So I'm so honored to have her, honored always to have you here. Thanks for being here and your support. Share with this friend if you would, or repost it on social media. Find me at lameredith.com or my Facebook author page, Elizabeth Meredith. All right, take care.
Rebecca Galli, thank you so very much for being on Persistence U today. I've wanted this interview for years. So our schedules finally, I want to say collided, but really what I mean is that
Yes.
yeah, they worked out. I am so excited for Persisters and Brothers to understand that you published your first book with the same publisher that I did with my first book. So Rethinking Possible is a book that I so very much enjoyed. And it had so many different words of wisdom in it. I'm also excited because you're about to publish your next book in October of 2024. So it's already on pre-sale. Morning Fuel. And I think you're a columnist, right? You write about gratitude. But what I want people to know for you is also that you're not just somebody that life easily, that everything fell in your lap easily, like a columnist and an author, and that's so great. And you have kids, and that is great. But you've gone through some things that are really challenging, and you've still carved out an amazing life and kept moving forward and helping others with your story. So I'm so very grateful. I'm just a couple of things. And then we'll have you start. One of the things that just struck me is that life looks up on us sometimes. And so, for you having a wonderful marriage and children, one of your children has autism and is affected pretty deeply by that autism. And you lost another child to a degenerative disease. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then after a divorce, I don't know that you saw coming, you had your own health issues that left you in a wheelchair. And you are still a columnist about gratitude, and you are still moving forward. And I just am so grateful for that. So thank you for being on Persistence U.
You're welcome. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And that was a lot of me talking. So anyway, I just would love for you, if you could, to talk about that time where your life was sort of bisected, where there was life before these things happened and life after. A number of us in life will have an event or something that just changes our world and perspective forever. But for you, it was just so many things that pummeled you for a while. So I'm interested in that moment that may have or that time period that may have redefined your life.
It's an interesting word you choose, bisected, because I feel like if I look back, there were different eras, and
Mhm.
each era kind of threw me into another era that I really wasn't expecting. And I think that's the thing. I think we're playing that, we have a lifespan, we have our early years and our mid years and our later years. But sometimes you're thrown something that puts you in an area you are planning for. And I think the first was when I was 20, I lost my 17-year-old brother in a water skiing accident. And so our family of 5 became a family of 4. And that was a new era for us. We found it very difficult to navigate through that because he was that kid, the one that wanted to go to law school and get into politics and, run for office. And he could have done it. He had the tools. So that was kind of that first experience with a deep loss and how to recover from that. And then, when Joe went on married, we had a great marriage and we wanted to have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. And we did.
Wow.
But our second son had seizures and later a degenerative disease. Our daughter had autism. And even my youngest had a blood disorder that thankfully he grew out of. So each one of those challenges put us in another era of parenting disabled children or family of 6 becoming a family of 5 and then divorce. And then 9 days after my divorce was final, I got this rare inflammation of the spinal cord called transverse myelitis that affects 1 in a million people. And a third recover fully and a third recover partially and a third don't have any recovery at all. And I was in that last category where I did not recover. So, it's been these series that, I kind of call them nested losses, and you have one and you hope to recover and you have another. And the good news is that I was raised in a family where we had a lot of positivity and a lot of encouragement. And I didn't realize this till I wrote my first book, Rethinking Possible, that I learned a lot watching my parents cope with the death of my brother and how they didn't cope the same way. My father was a minister and in a very public way. He could talk about it. He could preach about it. He became a noted lecturer on grief. My mother was more private and she joined a support group and actually became a leader in a support group. But I learned that there are different ways to grieve and that no way is wrong. Your grief is unique as your fingerprint. I really believe that. And then I think because of that loss so early on, I also realized that grief isn't one and done. It's kind of this strange companion that can follow you and to kind of allow for that loss, coming back and revisiting you at anniversaries and birthdays and things like that. So I think it was kind of an evolution. And after a while, I didn't pick the name of the book, Rethinking Possible, but I think that's a lot about what resilience is being able to rethink what's still possible given your current circumstance. So I guess it was a long answer.
No,
But
that's a great answer. That really is a great answer because, like you said, grief is as individual as your fingerprint, which is such a great way to look at that. Also, it isn't something that you get over, quote unquote.
Right.
You're not done. And that's been really, I have one of my daughters has had an enormous amount of losses through death. And by the time she was 18, she'd already lost several friends to freakish sort of accidents. And then it only got worse with more. And I used to, as someone watching, think, when will she be over this? When? And that's unfair, unrealistic. And that's just not how it works. And I think I've learned myself later on that one loss, a new loss will remind you of all the old ones.
that's true. Very true. Yep.
And
That's
that's
where you
what's
can go in that pity pit if you're not careful. Sometimes I think we sit on the edge of that so easily when we let it magnify. But that's when I think, not being alone and reaching out to others and sharing that is really important because you need to be honest about that feeling.
Right, right. And it's wonderful to have a positive mindset, but sometimes it's also okay to lean into the fact that life can be awful. Sometimes it stinks and we don't have to put a pretty bow on it. It is, I was telling a young barista today, we have oversold you on adulting, haven't we? It's rough.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that honesty is really important. I think that was one of the things that, when my brother died, I actually was kind of angry at him, which was so crazy to have an angry feeling after a loss. But it's like he left me, he left me to live without him. And, it was just, I felt guilty about having that feeling, but it's like it was honest. And I think that's really important to be honest with all of those feelings and then just not isolate with them, share them, or find somebody that you can tell and they be with you in it, and not try to make it better all the time.
Right. Absolutely. Being honest is so important with ourselves and with other people, and it helps us to reach out to others. And it also, I feel like, helps others then feel free to really grieve their own losses and also reach out for help when they need it. If you look only on social media, you get the idea sometimes that to live the right life, we're supposed to be happy and positive and it's supposed to be okay. And sometimes that's just not realistic at all. It's the whole thing. It's just life is a spectrum. And I think grief and joy can live concurrently.
Yes.
When you think about the period of time where so much was going on for you as a wife whose marriage ended, as a mom with kids who had many different things going on, can you share a couple of the things that really helped you and maybe people who really inspired you to keep moving forward?
After, particularly with no cause, no cure for epilepsy, no cause, no cure for autism. One of the things my dad suggested I do was journal. And that really helped me a lot, just getting my feelings out on paper. Because I think sometimes they become circular and you can't, you've had that thought before, but where did it go? It's still there. And so I think if you capture it and put it on paper, so that became a pretty strong habit for me through everything, through the kids, through the divorce, through my paralysis, and actually became the genesis for the Rethinking Possible book, because I had the details of how I felt about going through it and I had the facts for it. And even now, that was the first time I even wrote it all, was a column writing about what it was like to be paralyzed, what it was like to play soccer with my 3-year-old. My kids were 3, 4, 6, and 9 when I, was paralyzed. And that, that article, that it was actually an essay I had sent around. This is in 1997, before we even had blogs or anything like that. I sent an email and the email got forwarded. And then somebody in my church was an editor at the Baltimore Sun. And so he helped me and said, "Yeah, you've got something here." And then it became published, and that led to another column. But it was about writing about my feelings, like what it was like to try to engage with a 3-year-old from the wheelchair. And of all things, we played soccer. I was the goalie going back and forth in the garage, and he had a great time and I did too. And it's like, yes, I can still be a mom in the darn wheelchair. But that writing the thoughts down helps settle them for me. And that's still a constant today. I do it almost every day right now. And through the years, I've decided what's important about that. And I write, what my body's like that day, what my life has been like that day, what my mood has been like that day, 3 things I'm grateful for that day. and then any insights I've gotten that day. And I feel like that's a great way to just start. Um, and the morning fuel book that is coming out in the later in the fall are some of those writings, those very writings about, the story that came from the feeling that came from something that happened that I was trying to deal with. So huge proponent on that, but also huge proponent on, to call it, getting people in the boat with you when you're going through stormy seas. Who can help you? What resources do you have, and what people can you count on that can support you and help you and inform you? Sometimes you need experts because you're in foreign territory. You don't know what you're doing. So I think that those are the two things that I really lean into is the journaling and making sure that I have resources around, and then doing, what the title of your broadcast is, being persistent with it, just keep moving, is big too, not to dwell too long in one place.
Right. I love that you reached out to do something different in the thick of all of it. Wrote that essay and approached different people with it. That in itself says, I'm not giving up. Here's something different that came from a very difficult season. And yet something wonderful also came from that very difficult season.
Yes.
What would you want people to know who are supporting friends and or family who are going through a really hard time? Like what helped that people did, and maybe what could people avoid doing?
I think being willing to listen and listen deeply to everything that's being said, and even things that aren't being said. And I, to make sure you're not judging, as best that you can. You can just let them get it out. Um, and don't try to always fix it. Sometimes it's just, I can understand this, or I can't understand this. I don't know how you're doing it. I'm here for you in any way I can be. And sometimes I have friends like that are in such foreign situations I can't really identify at all. And I just send them little hearts and, emojis, and, or send a card, or just say, I'm thinking about you. Um, so often people will say something like, let me know how I can help you. And sometimes they don't know what they need. So, be observant. It's like, read the room. Um, could they use some flowers? Could they use a meal? Could they use, what kind of coffee do they like? Treat them with that, just that little tiny check in that lets people know they're not alone.
Love that. I love that. And I think you just reminded me, I one time did a book event with a couple of other She Writes Press authors in Oregon. And there was a young woman who'd written a book about miss her trying to build her family and having miscarriages. And Nadine Henny Johnson, I think was her name. And she talked about, and I quoted this in my second book, she talked about how she got so tired of people accidentally saying all the wrong things that she got annoyed enough, but then she knew they meant well. They don't know. We don't know. We don't know. We're not trained for all this stuff that life throws at us. So she crafted an email to all her friends to say, here's what I need you to say. And every single person reached back out to her and said those things. They didn't know what not to say. And so I think sometimes when we give people grace and we know that they may mean well, that they're not trained, I thought, well, good for you. Sometimes we can help people be equipped because they don't know. They don't know. And I am a fixer. I have really stepped on toes with my need to just fix things and make it better. And that is not helpful at all.
Right. Yes. And I think one of the things I've come to learn is, because I've been annoyed with people saying the wrong things to me too. And is that to when I'm not right in the middle of pain, is to say, how brave it was for them to reach out to me at all and to even try to say the right thing. Because I know when I'm trying to comfort someone and you don't want to say the wrong thing, sometimes you don't say anything at all. And that can be even worse because it feels like you're being ignored or that somebody doesn't know. So to try to see them as that effort being, they certainly wouldn't want to hurt you. Why would they ever want to hurt you? They're trying to comfort you and to give them some benefit of the doubt with that, and some margin. But it's hard when you're in it and somebody hits on that nerve. But one more person tells me that, you don't get more than you can handle. They think I'm going to bust them in the nose.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for that. Thanks so much for that. That's so funny. Oh, I love it. So I really appreciate that you journaled, and that's something that's financially accessible to everyone and can be very healing. Not everyone has money for a therapist or feels like they have health insurance for, although many places do, even online, do pay as you can, or there are some deals to be made. So I love therapy when people need it. But journaling is something that's accessible and inexpensive, can be very therapeutic. Did you find writing your first book, Rethinking, possible? Was that also cathartic in any way, or how did you find that experience?
It was difficult because I had to revisit every one of those losses and um, figure out a way to put it all together so that it had a larger story. And once I got advice back that it really should be a memoir, and I had to show create a lens to look at it. And the way I looked at it was if it didn't show love, loss, and healing, then it really shouldn't be in there. It shouldn't be just about my life. It should be moving through the life and what was learned. Oh, well,
So sorry. Couldn't hear a thing. So that's fine. This is supposed to be a real life conversation, not
okay, it
perfection.
was. I put this thing off the hook, but it must have been, I don't know.
You did great, and I didn't hear a thing. So I love it. You
All
have
right.
to know that life happens. Usually
Yeah,
my
it
cat
does.
jumps up in the middle. So if he hasn't done that yet.
I saw her in the background. I love cats. Um, but yeah, so the lens of how to write the book, and but I learned so much. I'm really glad I wrote it all down because it's a lot to remember as every year is like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I wrote about that. But that's kind of like I wanted my kids to hear it and to see it and not have to rely on snippets. So it was scary, to put the first book out there, and when it's so personal, but it was well received, and I think it was helpful to a lot of people. I know your book was, and it's a good experience. It's hard. How did you find yours?
Oh, I thought it was hard. I thought it was not only hard, and it took me forever and ever and ever, but what I assumed with so much therapy and so much time that had passed, that it would be super easy to promote. And that's where I started getting physically ill for about 18 months. I dealt
Wow.
with a lot of infections and things that were I got, there was so much still left inside my body. And every time I do a book event, it opened me up, and it was wonderful. I was grateful to have people who would read it, but I was very sick for a long time. And then it ended, and I am grateful for that. I believe healing is a lifelong journey. And sometimes we may think we are quote unquote over something, and then we find that there are still things that we can address. That's fine. That's okay. I don't think I'll ever have something be that hard again. How did you find your second book, writing Morning Fuel?
It was more enjoyable because I felt like the tone was so different. Because it's like, this is Rethinking Impossible is my life. And morning fuel this is one of the tools I use to get through it. Is every day I do readings every morning. I write a little bit, read a little bit, and kind of fueled for the day. That plus my coffee, and I'm kind of good to go. And so this was kind of like, what else? What of these stories that I've written and read could I tell that would be inspire, encourage, or make you think? Those are the three things that this book, the little stories each day. But it was a lot. 366 of anything is a lot. So they're longer than I thought, but it always does. It seems like. So I try to enjoy it. At least it's not the first. So it's really scary when it's your first. But I think I know a little of the ropes now. But you never know it all because the environment changes so much.
Right. In the world of publishing and book marketing and readers, it just changes. That's okay. Because I think if you've shown something to us all, it is that you can rethink what's possible and you can keep reinventing yourself and move forward happily. And not always happily. You could move forward humanly. Right. Maybe humanly is the best way to put it. Because
Right.
it is not realistic to think that we're all going to be happy all the time. That's just not a thing.
Absolutely. Yes. One of my favorite mottos I like to sometimes when I get stuck is, even though I can still, even though whatever the issue is, what can you still do? And in that way, it keeps you moving, keeps you thinking about the positive of what you could do. And, most of the times it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least it's like, okay, this is not the best day, but what can I still do? And I think that's a kind of a kickstart for me.
I love that. That's wonderful. Now, how can people find you and pre-order your book and just learn more about your writing and your column and all the things?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. And the easiest way is on my website. It's beckygalli.com, BECKYGALLI.com. And the book's available anywhere you buy books, your local bookseller, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, available for pre-order. And I would love to have them join my subscriber. I have a Thoughtful Thursday column that comes out periodically, and they can sign up for that at beckygalli.com too, and would welcome into my subscriber family, I call them. They've been with me a long time, 27 years.
Oh, that's amazing. That's just
Yeah.
amazing. I enjoy getting your Thankful Thursdays, and I just renamed it. Sorry about that, but I do very much enjoy it.
Yeah, that was one of the main
Gratitude.
considerations.
That's right. Gratitude is a huge part of healing. And I think if we train our brains to find what is worthy and good, even in the midst of the worst of times, it really helps move forward, to be there for better times and to prepare for the other times.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I loved having you here today. And thank you so much for your patience as I moved. I think, and then for our schedules to connect, it's just been a joy. And I'm looking forward to reading your next book.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to be here so much, Liz. Thanks for asking me.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You have a great day.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. Now, to find out more, head on over to lameredith.com and be sure to hop on the mailing list too. If you've enjoyed this show, please leave a rating and review or share with a friend. And if you really, really liked it, go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss another episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Persistence U with Lisbeth.